Everybody, happy Monday night. Today is April 10th, 2023. This is Across the Pitch. I am one of your hosts, Mike Barrera. To my side, we have Jose Nunez and Dave GFC Miller on Twitter. And I think that's the only platforms I have you guys on for these handles. Dave, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Yeah, no, I think it's almost 2 a.m. here. Yeah, I'm good. Battling on.
Love it. Let me see
Yeah.
that kit we were talking about in the studio. Let me see. Let me get a better look. We got the. Oh,
Oh,
look at
Oh
that.
my gosh.
maybe
Look at that. You got to show it off a little
else.
bit. Here we
Yeah.
go. Come on, Jose. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm wearing my fruit of the loom $9.99 sweatshirt from Walmart, also known as the spit up sweatshirt if you have a little one. But Mike, I am doing so well because I had so much fun with you at the stadium. You finally decided to sit with the people, and I think you enjoyed the 140 crowd that I've been talking about for so long.
I had a great time. So for those who know me well enough, you guys know I am a mosh pit punk rock in the get beat up in a pit kind of guy. So for me, the 140 crowd was a perfect vibe. We also got to see Eric. So Eric, if you chime in and check us out tonight, it was actually good hanging out with you and seeing you and. Hopefully more to come. But yeah, Jose, I had a great time. Thank you for the ticket. As you guys know, there was a big night for me because I got my Elliott kit. Finally, I'm gonna turn on the camera real quick. Pow! I got my double teed Elliott kit, and they gave me back my old one. And they said, "Here you go. Here's a 2-for-1 special." So I will be hanging that up, I'm sure, in the near future. Hopefully, maybe I can get it signed by Elliott as well. So besides that, we have 2 games to talk about. Well, 3, I guess, total. Jose, as you mentioned, we went to the first leg of the CCL on Tuesday, where they pulled off that 1-0 win just by the skin of their teeth. And then we had the 1-0 loss against Cincinnati in Cincinnati. So a couple things to talk about. And then on Wednesday night at 10 p.m. on FS1, the Union will be traveling to Mexico to play against Atlas for the second leg. So a lot to discuss today. Oh, wait, and the U Academy, the Youth Academy. Congratulations to both teams. They both made a final for the GA Cup. The U15 lost in PKs to Austin. That was a very tough PK loss there. And then I know the U17s beat FC Dallas, I want to say, right? In the final there, 1-0. So congratulations to them. Great effort there as well from both parties. But Dave, let's go to the CCL first. What were your thoughts on that first leg?
I think again it was good to come away with the win. I mean, you had to. I think had the Union, not scored or even if worse, had lost the game, you'd really been fearing the worst, especially with the away goals rule. But yeah, it was massive to come out of there with the win. And I was still slightly concerned because again, it looked like trying to put out teeth, trying to actually score from open play, and actually, it was just one of those games where. Again, okay, credit to Atlas, they had 10 men for the second half and defended really well. But again, it just did feel very frustrating. It's sort of when you do play against 10 men, you do sort of hope to sort of get a stronger hold on the game. And the Union didn't really do that for the first 20 minutes of the second half. So the game was still quite open and it did feel like Atlas were playing with 11 men.
Yeah.
Obviously, it weren't. It was just that's how the pattern of play sort of felt like. That's how it sort of felt. And, the game slowly started to, Union start to sort of take control. But again, they didn't really look a threat. I thought there weren't exactly too many chances I can remember of where the Union came too close until the penalty. And it took, again, another last minute, a lucky break, really. Because, again, I think that's what it is, a lucky break to have, been awarded the penalty and gotten the penalty, like, very similar to the Torres goal, where, it took a lucky deflection to, like, outsmart the goalkeeper and the goalkeeper's had a clanger again by coming out unnecessarily to try and claim a ball which he shouldn't have, and Union won the penalty for me. It was just again, they're still not convinced, but hopefully they can put it off on Wednesday.
I agree. And Jose, in terms of what we saw on Tuesday, I know you have been clamoring for the man of the match, Damian Lowe. Who
Yeah.
just came up with a little bit of a hamstring issue as of this past Friday. So you and I were there enjoying beverages that were certainly for adults only, but we still got to see a great match and remember it. So what was the overall takeaway from that night?
I think Dave really encapsulated it well. As I had mentioned to you in the stadium, and you alluded to it just a second ago, I was very quick and clear to you of, wow, what a game Damian Lillard has played, right? Just not letting anything through. Maybe, just maybe, some situations where the ball was sort of pinballed around, got to him, and him, rather than settling, does the does the MLS thing and just boots it up, right? Rather than just taking a touch and trying to distribute from the back, which is okay. It's neither here or there. But ultimately, Dave, to your point on, not being convinced about our offensive ability, I think, the only chance that I would maybe give the Union as a clear-cut chance was when Carranza sort of was it Carranza? Maybe I'm getting my games mixed up, where Carranza sort of like slid in the air to try to tap something in that was being crossed in. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game. I don't know. But overall, it was just, I still think that we are we are the most awful team when it comes to playing with a man up. We just have no creativity to break down defenses, because we go back to the same old tried and true Mbaizo down the end line, or Kai from 20-21 yards crossing it in rather than taking someone down the line. So all in all, job was accomplished. The mission was accomplished. We got a goal. We got a win at home. Could we and should we have had more than one goal? I would argue that yes, that would have been ideal going into Mexico this coming Wednesday at 10 p.m. FS1, as Mike mentioned. But I don't know. That was definitely what's up,
kid? What's up?
¿Qué pasa, boludo? Yeah, no, an interesting match altogether, and let's see what happens on Wednesday. We're going to talk about the game this past weekend, and albeit entirely a setup for this coming week.
Yes, and also just to touch upon a few things. I know we've been discussing if it's broken, let's make a fix kind of approach to the Union. And credit where it's due, Curtin did have a much different approach to the lineup. What we saw on Wednesday night, or Tuesday night rather. I agree with you, Jose. I thought the Damian Lowe was noticeably one of the best players on the field, and across the CCL in general. In all three of his matches, he's been arguably the man of the match for each of them for us. So
has he been team of the week for every single of the of the weeks? Yeah, that's incredible. I can't think of another player, and maybe I need to do some super research here quick while you talk, but I can't think of another player this year that has appeared in all three rounds of the cup so far.
So really quick, I'm going to discuss the lineup as well as have to listen to something other than SKC. Listen, please join the convo. I appreciate you chiming in, man. So the lineup that we saw this past Tuesday was Carranza up top. We had Gazdag and Torres on the sides. And then we had Martinez, McGlynn, Bedoya, Harrell, Lowe, Glesnes, and Mbaizo. The changes were Quinn for Olivier, Michael for Torres. So we didn't get to see Flock for the first time all season, which for me personally was a nice touch. But we did not see Andres Perea. And then we can kind of bring these two games together between the Cincinnati match and the CCL match. We didn't see Perea again on Saturday in a game where we definitely could have used him. But Dave, what are your thoughts on Andres Perea being absent for 2 games in a row?
I mean, it's certainly interesting though to not play a player that has in his last 2 appearances scored 3 goals. When he's actually played meaningful minutes. Yeah. Again, I think he did come on in. I think a game after the Orlando game, but played like 2 minutes at the end of the game. Might have been actually. I'm not too sure what game it might have been, but I'm pretty sure he did come on. But again, it's just a strange one. Obviously, Jim will have his favourites, and Ali will play through thick and thin. One way or another, he played half an hour against Cincinnati as well, and I have no doubt he still managed to get 30 minutes against Cincinnati. But I have no doubt he'll play. He'll start in midweek. But again, I just think it's an interesting move, because again we've seen that Andres is a player that he can defend. He's box-to-box player, but he's also very useful in attacking positions. As we saw with the goal he scored against Orlando. He's there. He can get into the right positions. He can contest and win headers inside the penalty area, which, just be honest, the Union have lacked this year on putting crosses into the box. I don't think the Union have actually scored from a cross into the box this year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They haven't. No, they haven't. Yeah.
So clearly your style of play isn't working, and that's another issue, isn't it? If you're, if what's the definition of insanity is doing something over and over again and hoping it works, but it never does. Again, that's the Union style of play. It hasn't worked, and sort of the only player that has actually managed to produce something this season from the outside of Andres Pereira. There's no one else. He's the only player that has, actually scored off a cross. I mean, of course, his initial effort was, I believe, it came off the post or saved, but still, he was still in the position. And no one else has been able to do that this year. It's certainly an interesting move. I mean, could the Union perhaps have won more won by more goals if Andres Pereira played against Atlas? Who knows? But I think again, he should probably play in Mexico. I think you'll need the legs. You'll need someone who can get on the ball, try and get you up the pitch, because I think you're going to need that. The Union are probably going to be pressed back to the wall for the 90 minutes, and you're going to need players, and not only are going to work defensively, but you're going to need players that that when they're on the ball, they can make something happen. They can get you from point A to point B. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But then I probably would be concerned if he doesn't, play at least one of the next two games.
Jose, I mean, you were directly in the press conference covering after Cincinnati for AAT Sports. I know you tweeted about Jim Curtin's response when asked about Andres, and the reporters that evening were fairly blunt as well. We'll talk about Donovan in a few minutes here, but if you could read your tweet or if maybe paraphrase what Curtin said and how you took it based on the response.
Yeah, I want to be very careful about this, right? Because I interpret it one way, and Mike, I think you were at the press conference as well, just digitally at the press conference as well. And to me, I read it as Jim has had constant communication with Andres. So it's not like Andres is just sitting there waiting, twiddling his thumbs, thinking like, why am I not playing? Why am I not playing? There's a good channel of communication between the two. And where Jim sees Andres having to catch up and develop yet, whether you believe it, whether this was Jim just coming up with an answer to, satiate the demand for him, because we've been screaming loud and clear about him. I have been a stand for him ever since he was so silky in the CCL, and frankly, watching him a little bit in Orlando, etc., was convinced that he's going to be a key player for us, or could be a key contributor. Claiming that it's a defensive end that Andres needs to kind of get caught up on and learn better about the Philadelphia Union, whether that's the press, whether that's the way that we shift over and we press, and then the way that we get beat is by switching the field on the other side. I don't know. That's the way I read it, Mike, but I'm not convinced. And I respect Jim. I respect the staff. I will question his lineups, but until I see it happen, etc., I remain calm. But really concerning to see Andres play more, especially when we have Cyborg Bedoya playing every single match as a 35-year-old, may it be all 90 or even the last 30 of a setup match for us, which was Cincinnati.
I think because there's a couple things to unpack here, Jose. Because for one, I know Curtin's very vocal with his players. He always makes sure that he's communicating with them. I mean, that's kind of how he's been for forever. I worry first about these injuries we've been seeing. So Kai Wagner suffers his first ever hamstring injury this past month, right? Damian Lowe now has a hamstring injury. Andre Blake had a groin injury. It's clearly something. I don't want to say that it's strictly the schedule. But there is a lot of games being played right now, and there is a very good chance these little tweaks in the body are happening because of the overload of schedule. The fact that Bedoya is able to go out there and still play 90 minutes is impressive to him, credit to him. But it does not mean we can run him into the ground because of his, availability to play at such a high level. And then you have to look at the question of, Leon Flock, and or just in terms of the question of proven to play. Andres has made enough of a statement now to say, I should take some of Leon's minutes. In the game against Atlas, when you really need to go for it, right? You really have to score 1 or 2 goals. Bring in someone like Pereira to give him more offensive spark. When you're playing a game like against Cincinnati, having Andres be the substitution instead of Bedoya, and leave Bedoya getting some rest for the Wednesday match. It's just things like that maybe make me wonder why, when someone of his talent is available, he's not being used. But the last thing, Jose, I think I'm a little scarred from what we've seen from Davo and Orvich and and even Bueno to some extent. I worry sometimes. I think as a Union fan that these players that they bring in are not seeing minutes, and we don't really know why. No one can really explain the Davos situation to us, or even sexy season, right? We don't really have an explanation why they didn't get more minutes, especially when there were certain matches that were available that could have gotten them that time. So, Dave, any last thoughts on this weird roster situation? Am I a little bit too paranoid with this past Union work?
That's what happens when you have a director of football who makes all
There
footballing
we go.
decisions, and who knows, I might be getting this taken, or perhaps Jim doesn't have an input in what happens. But I mean, usually with the director of football, he signs the players, and the manager works with what he's got available to him, unless
Yeah.
perhaps because I believe Jim is a coach, not a manager, so he doesn't. But I mean, who knows? But I think again that is sometimes what does happen. I mean, perhaps agents, perhaps there's agents, or there are scouts at the club who who have agents, who are good friends with agents who push for their players to be signed. That could be another thing that happens. But yeah, it's many things. I think again, he sort of said it can't be no coincidence that we've signed multiple players now where there have been more question marks about why he hasn't played as opposed to what he's actually done on the field.
Right.
Is it concerning? I'd say yes, especially considering perhaps we've been a bit too overreactive with Pereira at the moment, especially, because it's not as if, he's a Dava or an Orovich who I don't think actually really played the game or any meaningful minutes.
No.
Pereira has started the game, a couple of games, he scored three goals. So, hopefully it's just, I don't know, fingers crossed Jim can, have the faith in him to get something from the game and, get something from the game in midweek, hopefully. Again, maybe he might play on the left to give you that bit of a spark, but, who knows?
Well, they also need to make sure they, don't give up 3 goals in Mexico either. So that's what one concern I have is that they're going to go there and play too defensive. They're going to play too scared. They're going to just try to hold that 1-goal lead, if you will, rather than going for it. But I will say that the lineup we saw against Cincinnati does make me feel like they're actually going to go for it and play competitively down in Mexico rather than just playing kind of timidly, if you will. But Jose, the Cincinnati lineup, right? We saw a very unique change to the formation here. We had Donovan and Quinn up top. We had a collection of people like Brujo and Bueno playing side by side. What were your thoughts on the Cincinnati lineup and the first 45 minutes we saw from that 11?
I must admit, when I saw that lineup, I really debated even watching the match. Because right there and then, and I'm a sicko. I watch every Union match, whether they start at 10 o'clock in the evening or they start at 7:30, or we're there together, Mike, whether you're in the press box or with me in the section 140. See that lineup, I thought to myself, all right, I can take care of the dog. I can make sure I put the kids to bed. I can walk away, come back down. I don't have to feel the pressure that I usually feel on my shoulders and then my head to watch every minute and digest and etc. I ended up watching the whole damn thing anyways.
Yeah,
but man, if we're gonna play a setup match like this one, and maybe I'm venting a little bit here, if we're gonna play a setup match like this one in the way that we went out there, why not just go full setup at that point, right? Why not just not play Brujo, right? like why not just totally just play the second team that's still capable? If anything, something that I came out of with the press conference after the Cincinnati game is and Jim alluded to it was, and Pat Noonan admitted it as well, that Cincinnati should be concerned that it took a call for a penalty the way it went, right, despite the craziness, for them to beat Philadelphia Union second team. That is a huge vote of confidence to our second string. Was it the right result? No. But ultimately, I don't know. That lineup was finally bliss of great. We're going to put our eggs on one basket, and that's the Champions League. Whether you value that one a lot or not, I don't care. I think maybe there's some comfort in knowing that playoffs are extended drastically this year, so getting into the playoffs is not as hard. so we don't have to maybe focus on it as much as we did last year for sure. But ultimately, I mean, I don't know. I hate to say I don't put a lot of value on the result of this with last weekend. It's a result that gets on our record and gets, gets recorded for history and forever. But nonetheless, I'm just so glad that Jim finally thought, let's set up for Wednesday, because that's what matters.
I agree, and I mean, there's a couple positives I got out of this. For one, I like that it was the second game in a row that that Jim had a new lineup. Right, he did the the Christmas tree out in against Mexico, or against Atlas rather, on Tuesday, and he comes out here with a three in the back, that different formation we've been calling for. I know in the press conference they mentioned Damian Lowe was supposed to be on the left hand side or in the back three, but he was not. But Nathan Harriel stepped up and he did fine in that back line. But Quinn Sullivan, for me, was the bright spot of the match. And I really did not want to see him come out of that game at all. And Dave, I know I want to shoot this to you with the substitutions. I'll get to you in a second with that. I thought Quinn was incredible for what he had to work with, especially up top next to Chris Donovan. I mean, he was active. He was extremely diligent with the ball. He had that one sequence where he started off, closer to his end, and he made his way basically single-handedly down the field to earn us a throw-in. I thought, wow, this is the Quinn Sullivan that I've been wanting to see all season long, and we just really haven't had a chance. I feel like we've seen Donovan a lot more than we've seen Quinn so far. So that was a bright spot to me, is to see that maybe he will be that third striker we want from him, i.e. Corey Burke, that style player. But the one thing that gave me the biggest concern, and Jose, to your point, was the fact that if you're going to play that lineup and you're going to easily make this a Union Beast team, why not just let that be the game? But instead, Jim Curtin brings in subs. He brings in Ua, Bedoya, because he has to play, and Gazdag. And Dave, I'll shoot it to you. What were your reactions after those three subs came in?
I thought they were positive sub, but they just completely. That game was so reminiscent of some of the games that Union did play in around the CCL games they had in 2021.
Yep.
The one game that really comes to mind is that New England game. I think they lost 2-1 after being after being 1-0 up or drawing 1-0 at half time. Jim made like 3 subs or 4 subs at half time and brought on like 3 or 4 starters, and the game just went to absolute crap. Everything fell apart, and the exact same happened sort of on Saturday. The game plan was working. I don't think there was any need to make any changes. Quinn was doing really well. Quinn was buzzing around. He was pressing high from the front. Although Donovan didn't actually do anything. He did give him his credit. He did a lot of running around. He did try. He put the pressure on. He put the pressure on their back line. In that sense, I mean, he took Quinn off and he took Chris Donovan off, and the press went completely. Gazdag's not a pressing sort of player you can expect. He didn't really. Gazdag was sort of anonymous for most of the game. Unlike Quinn, Bedoya gave the ball away, but his first 3 or 4 touches, gave the ball away every single time with the area passes. 2 of them led to counter-attacks. Obviously, one of them led to the goal, which, again, it's just poor when there was just the cohesion that the team did have when they were moving up the pitch and players were working their way into positions and attacking positions. That just completely went out the window, and it looked like there was no cohesion. There was Bedoya misplaced 2 passes. Players were running one way, he was giving it the other way, and it completely killed the team's momentum. I wouldn't say momentum, it completely killed the game plan. It completely killed the shape. And in the end, you sort of went from having 2 players up front with, they were both actually playing up front, to one guy up front and a number 10 who wasn't going to apply any pressure to the back line and sort of the gap in between the midfield and defence. And Cincinnati sort of allowed Cincinnati to sort of take a bit more control of the game and made their life more comfortable.
That goal was started by a Bedoya turnover. He gets the ball. It's a poor pass. The counter goes, and I know the cross back in was misplayed by Leon, which I know, Dave, you and I kind of disagreed upon. I thought Leon should have done better. But to your point, and we messaged back and forth that night, it's something that a lot of defenders sometimes just have a miscue when they're trying to slide from that angle to clear the ball. So it leads from that, and then you have the goal line stopped by, I think it was Glesnes, and then it just, at this point, Andre Blake just can't take any more heat, and the ball goes in the net. But I completely agree with you. And that's very worrisome that your starters, your best players, the highest pedigree players come in and they can't seem to continue the cohesion that was visible in the field. Because you know what? Guess what? Those first 4 to 5 minutes, sorry, my cat's like climbing out. He turns 3 tomorrow, by the way, this giant, enormous lion of mine. Um, the, the thing that was shocking to me was the fact that in that first 45 minutes of the game, I thought the Union played very well to the game plan that they went in there with. You know, they said, we're just going to press them. We're not going to give them any sort of easy looks on net. We're going to try to take those counter opportunities when they present themselves to us, and that's going to be the game plan. We're going to go into the locker room 0-0, which is exactly what they did. So for them to get away from that in a game that would have been so momentum building to get a draw in Cincinnati, to do that was deflating. Because I expected a loss going into it, but to lose like that, I was like, come on! Everything was going the way it needed to go. Jose, just in terms of the players that we got to see that night, Jesus Bueno earned a start that night, right?
He looked good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what were your thoughts on Jesus, and do you think that maybe that earned him some more time?
Yeah, I was very quick to text you both in our group chat for those that watch, listen, etc. We're constantly talking during these games, texting back and forth, and just sort of sharing notes. But in the group chat, I said very clearly, Bueno needs to really grab this opportunity and make the most of it. And I am really bummed that it ended the way it did, because I thought he was absolutely fine. I wouldn't say he had a great game. I wouldn't say that he was a man of the match or anything like that, but he played just fine, which goes to speak volumes about the fact that maybe he should be getting more chances, right? I wouldn't say that the that the level dropped off. In fact, the level dropped off once the actual starters came in. So for him to have gone on and played as well as he did, I was very happy with it. In fact, I almost want to pull for him to play actually on Wednesday.
What? Really?
I know.
You think he will?
No, I don't think he will. I'm pulling for him. I think he would be a great addition. I think he's silky, he's smooth, and he can give you some of that movement that we lack from some of our players. Flock, Bedoya. Mm-hmm. Just saying.
Hey, Jose, Ali Bedoya will be playing until he's 50. Okay.
No, and I recognize that. I'm just. No, when we think about the Wednesday game, and I know we're going to shift over to that topic, it's a lot of it has to do with movement and being able to get in front of players, and I just don't know that that's going to happen with some of the players that we will probably start with. But nonetheless, I thought Bueno was great, and I really hope he gets more chances.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, do they use the same lineup that they played in Chester for Wednesday? Do you think that's because, I mean, they really did play better than Atlas from beginning to end. Now, whether they scored off those opportunities, that's a different story. They were clearly lacking in the finishing touch, but I thought they played the best game of the season so far from an eye test standpoint. I think a lot of fans agree with me. I thought they actually looked competitive for once. But then the issue then is, where does Andres Pereira come in with that? Because if he doesn't play again, or if he's not a substitution again, that again, going back to our earlier point, causes some concern. So, Dave, what do you think this lineup is going to be against Atlas down in Mexico? If you had to pick it and formulate it right now,
I think Jim should do exactly what we did against Cincinnati. Perhaps not in terms of personnel, but with the lineup, you match them up man for man, go 5-3-2 or 5-4-1, whichever way you want to go with it, and you're going there defending, essentially. You're defending a 1-0 lead. It was going to be a very, very intense. I'm not sure what the weather's going to be like. I'm sure it might be. I'm sure it'll probably be humid. I mean, it's in the middle of spring now, and I imagine the North America sort of region is going to be nice and warm. So I imagine it'll be quite intense. My side go match to man for man. Go with the 5 at the back. I mean, this is where perhaps I would have quite liked to have seen. I'm quite shocked. Perhaps if wasn't fit, you didn't start Brandon Craig on the not this week, not today. Do not play Brandon Craig in Mexico. Do not play Brandon. But against Cincinnati, okay. I was shocked to see him not playing in Cincinnati. Just so you don't. So again, you give one of Harriel or whoever a rest, because again, they've now Harry's gone on and played 3 games in a row
Yeah.
as well. So he's been put through the ringer a bit the last 2 weeks. We'd given someone like him a rest or let Jacob a rest. Well, actually, no, you can't really give Jacob. Jacob's got that.
He's playing too well this season to give him
I
a
know
rest.
he's playing too well, but saying he's what.
Yeah.
Perhaps half the reason why Jim doesn't drop him for MLS actions because he's he's got his consecutive appearance record. But I'd definitely go the five at the back. Blake and goal. I'd probably go the Bizo. I think if Lowe's not fit, you probably would have to play Harriel. But no, I say if Lowe's fit, you play Harry at the right wing back, and you play Lowe at left centre back. If not, you start in Bizo and play Harry on the right left centre back. You got Jacob and Jack Elliott, Matt Real left wing back. Who, I mean, to be fair, I don't think he was that bad against Cincinnati.
I agree with you. I thought he played better. I think Kai Wagner should be available for Wednesday as well.
Okay, yeah, I think that'd be big. If you get Kai Wagner back in, that'd be massive.
Yeah, he traveled.
Awesome. Okay, but then again, I wouldn't feel too nervous about having Matt Real there at left wing back. I think he's then got the cover of Nate Harriel. And I think he's just a more defensive left back, which there's nothing wrong with. When you're a team that has width and, has wide players that can impact the game, but when your biggest outlet for creativity and your whole team's your left back, then yeah, that is, or your full backs in terms of width and, in terms of your width, that is probably not ideal.
Right.
Midfield, personally, I think 3 of Martinez, Pereira, and.
So you think Andres starts then?
I'd like him to. I don't think he will. I think.
Wanting him to, and what Jim's actually going to do, Mike, are very different things.
It's true.
I wouldn't be shocked to see a diamond, but I think Jim will play a back 3. I think perhaps Saturday night was a preparation for that. It's a big, you're spending a week and a half, preparing and lining up with the back 3 and back 5, whatever, and using it on Saturday and getting it into a bit of an effect will probably help, especially with your defenders. I imagine them feel, I'd like to see Pereira, Martinez, and I imagine he'll probably play Gazdag in the middle, or it might play like a 5-2-1-2, and I'd like to see Uar and Carranza start up front, although, if Uar doesn't start in Mexico, then you have to start asking questions about his availability and as such, because if he's not playing in Cincinnati and with no intention of playing him against Atlas and CCR, you have to wonder, what are you doing with... Then you have to start questioning the money that you're investing in a designated player in your record signing if you don't trust him in your biggest game of the season, or at least if you don't trust him to be that star guy that's going to get you through a rough game. When you are expecting to struggle, you're not starting him being like, you've got to be the talisman, you're going to be the guy that's going to get us through the game.
Right.
Either or, you then got to start asking questions of what's the point of spending all this money on a player that you don't trust.
Can we make the argument? Because Julian Carranza hasn't played well either. I know everything gets pointed to Uwa because he's the big name, the big money. But it's not like Carranza has really made an impact at all this season. And
Carranza takes up a DP spot, just to be, again, fair to it all. He's also a DP. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So, I don't want to say, I'm not trying to give excuses for Michael, because I feel like he's had some opportunities to make something happen and hasn't. I do think he's been offsides like a ton as well this season. But if Carranza is playing as poorly as he is, how much of a pressure then is it for Ua to get going? Or how can they not work together if they're both playing poorly at the same exact time? It's not like Gazlag's also playing that great either. So it's like the three of them are just kind of out of sync together individually. So that's why when I saw Quinn Sullivan playing as well as he did, like that is what I've been looking for from Ua and Carranza. This impact player who's coming in and making things happen, whether it be in the press, whether it be moving forward, that kind of stuff. The lineup, Dave, I agree. I think they're going to go 5 in the back or 3 in the back with the 2 wingers as well. Kai Wagner coming back is a huge lift. I do agree though. I think Matt Real, as his offensive woes are sometimes obvious compared to Kai, he does make some good defensive plays, and I think at least you have to tip your hat to that he has improved since the previous game that he played in. So I agree with that as well. Um, I'd like to see Jack McGlynn. I don't think he will in Mexico because they're trying to go more defensive in a little bit, which is why where Leon's going to play. But in terms of the Chicago match, I do see McGlynn starting against Chicago, which will be the next game we talk about very briefly here. But Jose, how about this? Your thoughts on Wednesday night? Who do you expect to see, or the outcome you expect to see?
I think we see a very close repeat to what we saw in Chester. Excuse me, a 4-3-3, though with some changes. With Kai back, we have Harry will take a seat. I
Yeah.
think Lowe and Glessness continue that partnership that was so good that game, and obviously Jim was going to try to replicate it as well in Cincinnati, but that hamstring or whatever the knock was that Damien got in training on Friday kept him away from that. I think maybe that knock is actually what's getting him to play on Wednesday, because I'm not sure that he would have started both Cincinnati and Atlas at Atlas. So a back four, and then a simple 3-3. I think Bedoya will play. I think Martinez will play. I don't think McGlynn will be repeating his appearance like he did in Chester, but rather I think that's where we see Perea. I don't think that Flock gets the call up.
Do you think his time? Yeah, go and say before you. And do you think his time is starting to dwindle on the lineup based on performance, or what do you think?
Leon's time?
Yeah, do you think that?
Yeah, I think he's had a horrid time this year so far, and sure he looked a little bit brighter against Cincinnati, and that's fine, but I don't know that. I think it's tough when you have competition, and
yeah,
I don't know. I think Perea does get a start, but then in the front three you have Carranza, Gastag, and Ua. I think all three will be up front, and obviously it'll just be a 4-3-1-2 type of formation, and just let those three up top. But to go back to the topic about Julian, yeah, someone laughed at me in 140, and I remember who laughed at me, but
it wasn't me. I promise.
It wasn't you, and it wasn't this match. It was a previous one. We miss Corey Burke.
Yeah.
We absolutely miss Corey Burke, because if at the time last year when things were not clicking or some players were having downtime, you had Corey Burke come in and pick it up. And if Corey started not playing well, then you have Mikael play really well. And then if Mikael had to drop off because of a injury or playing time, then you had Carranza come in. Never mind the odd Bedoya goal, and sure, maybe a sprinkle of Flock just whipping his leg at the ball and somehow going in. It was working. And now that we don't have a Corey Burke, a tried and true gigantic striker that's dual threat, both from open play, mind you, the goal that he scored against NYCFC at the conference final, and in the air, who do we have? Mr. Donovan. And that's it, Sure, we have Sullivan, but Donovan's the answer, apparently. So, you laughed at me. Some folks laughed at me when I said we miss Corey Burke, but I think we really, really do miss Corey Burke when we look back at it.
And you look at Carranza more closely. So if you remember the playoff matches closer to October, I believe I posted online somewhere, but Carranza had gone like a month and a half without scoring. Remember he had that long drought at the end of the season? And we were like, when is Carranza gonna get back on the horse?
And then it clicked.
And then, but then this year it's the same thing. Now, and I'm going to give credit to Alex Windley, who I had on the show about a month-ish ago. Back when we first signed Carranza last year, one of the things she said, he's going to run his ass off. He's a great locker room guy. He's going to give you a all.
Handsome.
A very handsome guy. But he's going to disappear for times throughout the season. And we didn't see that at first, right? We saw Carranza just lining up hat tricks left or right, these beautiful goals like we saw against LAFC. And we saw this Carranza that we envisioned only in the wildest dreams because of what we got him for and what we brought him over with expectations, his injury history, that kind of stuff. But now we've gone through several months of the last season and several months of this season where he hasn't scored. And that's kind of frightening to me, because I don't know what Tanner's goal is then, because you're right. I mean, Donovan is that, target striker, right? He's got speed, he's got height. He's just not there yet, which is not all his fault. He's kind of just being put into this situation. But then you have to begin. Like if Carranza is not scoring and Uwa's not scoring and Gazla can only make PKs and Quinn's not scoring then where's your offense going to come from? So I don't know what Tanner's going to do. I really don't. And I hope that at least in Mexico they can get a goal early to kind of relieve the pressure of having to score multiple goals in a short period of time. But that will be Wednesday night, 10 p.m. I'm optimistic as best I can be. But we do have, one last final game to talk about, which is when they travel to Chicago to play against the Fire. It will be a
Can
game.
I ask a couple
Yeah.
questions before we move on?
Yes, let's go ahead.
Say things go well on Wednesday, right? And we move on. Let's just think about the following set of circumstances that come up, right?
Sure.
Things go well on Wednesday. That is Wednesday, April 11th, right? Yeah. We would play again on the 25th. 12, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, 12, sorry. We play again on the 25th for leg 1, and then again May 2nd. So let's think about the congestion again, right? And I'm not even sure when U.S. Open Cup starts. I know that the next round was already drawn and that after this coming round, we step in.
Yeah.
But say that things go well on Wednesday, the 12th. Are we okay with Jim sacrificing some more games leading into the semifinals? I say yes. At that point, you're in the semifinals. You might as well go all for it, right?
Dave, that's a great question, Jose. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd say so. Yeah, I mean, they're going to be playing LAFC, and
yes,
yeah. I mean, comparing the way that the two teams have played this year, I mean, LAFC are on absolutely fire. I think Wanga's been
He's
Wanga,
MVP.
so they've been the best player in the league by a country mile. I mean, that's how you do designated players. Clearly, yeah, it's going to be a really, really tough game. And I think the biggest thing for the Union is going to be trying to, hang around in the game for over 2 legs. I mean, again, they matched LAFC stride for stride last year, but looking at the two teams this year, they could be worlds apart.
These would be the setup matches, right? You would have to set up and maybe send B Team Union against Toronto on Saturday, April 22nd.
Oh, God.
3 days rest. And then, actually, that's somewhat convenient because then we don't play again. We wouldn't play the second leg till May 2nd. So it would be back-to-back CCL games.
And then before you know it's Leagues Cup.
Yes, and that's just it, right? So then we embark into another journey of tournaments. So you're really honestly sacrificing one match, which, it's Toronto, and Toronto is loaded with 3 starts up front, but I think a lot of injuries right now. I'm not really following them too well, but just wanted to kind of put that out there for us to think about, having to sacrifice another match in Toronto leading into it. But obviously we need to get through Wednesday first, not to get ahead of ourselves.
No,
I just wanted to bring that up.
It's a fair point. Even Saturday against Chicago, I mean, we didn't play against Mueller when we played against them at home.
Nope.
And I haven't checked on Chicago since we played them, so I don't know if he's playing right now. I believe he is. I worry about Chicago. I do. I don't know why I do. I just do. I know Shaqiri's obviously dangerous, and their whole method is basically play through Shaqiri and just make it work. So I have hope that Jose Martinez can pocket him or the center backs can pocket him and they do okay? Sure, of course I can. I know we played against Chicago well. I'm not worried about that, but we're just not convincing, and we're losing at these chances at drawing games. Where, to your point, Jose, it's easier to sacrifice MLS matches when you're at least earning points in these MLS matches. But when you keep losing and losing and losing, the fans are growing more and more frustrated with these, to them, second-tier tournaments, second-tier trophies, because a lot of fans would rather have an MLS Cup than a CCL Cup. I am one of those fans. I would rather have the MLS Cup than the CCL Cup, although I know the importance of the CCL, and I will be very happy and grateful if they do win it. At the end of the day, if I could pick one, I'd pick the one that Bale took from us.
Saddest part about it all is that setup match against Toronto. If we get to that point, it's at home.
Oh,
So you can imagine, Dave, you have to come to Subaru Park when things are not going well, because it's not all cheery. It's
we had a
I can
fight last
I
time
can
on
imagine.
Tuesday.
yeah, it's I can't even begin to think getting to that Toronto game and seeing a Donovan up front, and no offense to Quinn Sullivan leading the charge. Whew, that's going to be a tough one to sit through.
But then that's okay. So then that's when you think, when do we see somebody like Pierre, right? I mean, when do we
At
see
least a
someone?
bench, right?
When do we see Pierre come in? When do we see Riasco finally make his appearance? Right? He's another one of these Davos style players. He's supposed to be this great generation, this great talent from. I think he's from. Where is he from? Venezuela, right? Riasco. I don't remember. I know he's South American. When do we see someone different besides Donovan? But again, I'm going to give Curtin some credit. I do like the fact that he's not just sticking to the diamond and forcing people into the diamond. I do appreciate these last two matches have been different formations. And I don't believe it's any surprise in these last two matches we have looked better than we have all season. That is, and we've had clean sheets in what? We had two consecutive clean sheets. Excuse me, we only gave up one goal against Cincinnati. So from a defensive standpoint, numerically speaking, or statistically speaking, whatever, there have been far less goals of late. So I'm hoping that Curtin maybe finally listens to our show enough times where he says, wow, these three gentlemen really know what they're talking about. Maybe I should change the formation up here. But Dave, I mean, what are your thoughts on Chicago? What do you think? Do you think we even pull out a draw in Chicago right now with how we're playing?
I mean, Chicago have been surprisingly actually started the season quite well. I didn't realise that
They did.
they've only lost one game all season. I mean, they've been a bit of a contrast between them and the Union season so far. With cracky, Union have lost Union have lost 4 games. I mean, that's a crazy thing to think about. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a tough one. I think again. I mean, even then we sort of we said at the time of the Chicago game at the Subaru Park. I mean, any other team that's not Chicago probably beats the Union 2 or 3, probably 2-0 on the first 10 minutes
Probably.
against the Union. That's again, it's a problem. I think, and again, the Union still came away a lucky deflection away from being held to a 0-0 draw um,
The fire.
against Chicago. And 7 points looks a lot more friendlier than 5. I'd say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough game. I think. Do I think they'll win? I think it depends what sort of lineup they put out. Perhaps with now, you've got a bit of a break in between league games. Essentially, you've got you've got a week between league games. You can rest players up for a week. I can imagine Jim probably playing a strong lineup. Chicago should probably give the team a better chance. It depends, obviously. Some Andre Blake's going to play. Martinez is probably going to play. Glasnes and Elliott will play. Maybe not Wagner if he comes into the lineup. Bedoya will play. Gazdag will probably play. So there are players in there that will probably play. That could probably play both games. I mean, you're just hoping that things just click. And
I'm hoping they just survive,
Yeah.
man. These little ticky tack injuries we've been seeing are frightening to me, considering how much season we still have left to play.
I mean, I'll say it happens when you don't. It happens when you don't rotate your team properly and you don't rotate your key players. I mean, when you've got when you're playing Kai Wagner every single minute of every game, he's going to break down and get injured. He's going to break down and get injured. There is no. I don't know why anyone's shocked about this. This has been waiting to happen for 3 or 4 years now. You could argue, have probably been the luckiest team in the MLS when it's come to injuries, which is obviously a credit to the medical staff and the fitness staff that they've done so well. But at some point, you are going to have an injury crisis. Players are going to get injured.
Yeah.
And if you don't take proper care of them in terms of rotation and minutes, when you've got quick turnarounds, their bodies are going to break down. They're going to get injured, and we've seen that with Kai. Considering he pretty much played every single game last year, bar suspension, and he before the injury played pretty much every single minute of this season. It's going to happen.
That's gonna happen. Jose, any final thoughts on these games? Well, I guess we're not going to be on camera until after the Chicago game, so we really need to get predictions in. If you watch the weekly segment "Bet the Boys in Blue," None of us predicted the score correction correctly. None of us predicted the goal score prediction correctly. My extra bet at the end, though, which I think we all collectively kind of won on, was the money line for Cincinnati, which was a lot lower than it should have been. It was like minus 105 for the money line for Cincy, which was just a welcoming,
Yeah.
added to my pocket there. So, Jose, what are your predictions for Chicago, which should be week 8 for the Bet the Boys in Blue segment?
I think Chicago. We go to them, so I think we go to Chicago and we lay an egg, and Mr. Mueller scores in the 80th minute.
You had him scoring last game, didn't you?
I did, but he didn't play. Damn it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you got Mueller scoring. What's the score prediction for you?
1-0. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. That team's a tough team to watch. So I think Mueller might be the only sight of sign of life for that team, and I don't think that we get the luck of a red card and a Joaquin Torres shot that gets bobbled in by their keeper. So I think our luck has run out against them already.
I agree. Dave, how about you? What do you think on that?
Are we doing Atlas score predictions as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, nice. Well, Jose, what do you think for Wednesday? It's not part of our segment. Well, yeah, we'll throw it in there.
I think we go to Atlas and we win 1-0. I think we'll have a header in. I actually was very impressed. I think Damian Lowe could score 1 or 2 headers this year if he gets more playing time. He is obviously gigantic, but he is not shy to getting up there in the box.
No, not at all. Okay, I like it, Dave. Same questions to you, sir.
Hoping it comes back to bite me, but I think Atlas will win 2-0 on Wednesday night.
Damn it, Dave!
You are pessimistic tonight. My God.
I mean, wait for Chicago prediction. I don't know. I just think they'll have too much for the Union. I think
so
the way the Union are playing, I think. I don't know. I just feel like there's one thing that's concerned me as well is once this team concedes a goal, I feel like the heads drop a bit. Heads go down a bit. And heads do drop. Be interested to see how they react if they do go down in midweek on the other side on Wednesday. Hopefully they can put that out. But I think Atlas will win 2-0. But then in Chicago, I think the Union will win. I think they'll put out a win, a much needed win. I'll go 1-0 in Chicago. I think goal scorer wise, I couldn't put a name on it. I really couldn't put a name on it because, I mean, I think we all saw, Mikado not play in the CCR game when everyone was sort of locked in. Like he's definitely going to play in Cincinnati. He's not played. Didn't play in Cincinnati. No one knows if he's going to play on Wednesday, and I genuinely don't know who's going to play up front. And I mean, again, he could play Quinn Sullivan and Chris Donovan up front again. But yeah, I think I'm not going to put a goal scorer on it at the moment. Let me see what happens on Wednesday, and then I'll put a goal scorer.
Okay, so if 1-0 and tentatively speaking, we'll wait for that. For Atlas match, I know they're missing. Aren't they missing 2 of their players for suspension? Right?
Because they are, and they just had their entire roster play a full 90 and then some just yesterday.
Yeah, okay, yesterday. Okay, so they have 1 less day of rest than us. Granted, we travel, but I do think that's important for us to remember, is that they did lose a couple key pieces up for that next match against the Union.
One more point to inform your decision. Their
ahead.
Goalkeeper, I think, got injured yesterday.
Don't say this, Jose, because now I'm too optimistic.
He landed weird on his knee, and then he was having a hard time walking.
Speaking of landing weird, Olivier Mambazo had a bit of an errant pass to Jose Martinez, and Brujo, I thought, tore his groin or pulled his groin or something like that, which would have been just right in line to what Dave's point has been. You're playing these players until they fall apart. Because the players who are getting injured are not like, 22, 21 years old. They're all Kai Wagner, Jose Martinez. They're all 27, 26, getting close to the 30-year-old age. You had Salvador last year at the end of the year, right? He kind of tweaks his groin on this weird header against Orlando. Andre Blake, for example. So it's not like the Union are the youngest team in the world either. They have some older players, so you hope that they can stay healthy. So, okay, I do think they're going to beat Atlas. You know what? No, I don't. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw, which in that regard would then give us the win and have us advance because of the away goal total. So I'll do 1-1 against Atlas. I don't think the Union shut them out in Mexico. I'd be very impressed if they did that. More so than you can imagine. Okay, against the Fire. Today's point, I don't know if I can predict the goal score until I see this rotation come out on Wednesday.
That's also true.
It's very true. Who knows? Maybe Riasco starts against Chicago Fire. At this point we have no idea what's going to happen. I do think they play the Fire fairly competitive and they play them fairly well. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw also against the Fire. I think they squeak it out and that's about it. I just don't think Chicago can beat us on a regular basis. So that is our score predictions for that match. We have a lot to look forward to. And congratulations to the Academy teams to make it to the final and the 17s earning that GA Cup final. I know I have to do the sponsors, Jose.
Quick question before you do the sponsors.
Yes.
Generation Adidas Cup, was it aired on
Apple Plus
YouTube last year?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Does it seem like this year there was far more? I mean, I know it's the Union and we're focusing on the Union and they obviously played a prominent part, but I've never seen on Twitter over the 3 or 4 years of being maybe more involved in social media with the Union, this much attention to the Youth Academy and this tournament.
Everywhere. I mean, I saw people posting about the baby snakes like crazy.
Like, I'm not wrong in thinking like it felt like people were more talking about it than ever before, right?
No, I mean, I think Sullivan, being what he is right now down there in the academy, is also drawing some eyes because he's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched that one goal. He dummies like 5 people just running through the box, and it's like that's what an impact player does when he's that good. He can alter the way that the defense reacts to a ball that quickly. So I watched the bits and pieces. I was working through most of it, but listen, if he's the future. If those kids are the future of the Union, that's pretty promising. Yeah. So very cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
And let me go to the sponsors real quick, and then we'll do final thoughts here. All right, here we go. Check out Statement Games at statementgames.com for a funny way to spend fantasy sports entertainment. You win gift cards and prizes. It's free to sign up at statementgames.com. Doan Distillery at the Trolley Barn Public Market in Quakertown. Go to doandistillery.com to check out their wide variety of drinks and spirits. Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant in Allentown, PA. Discover a new favorite by trying their top pizzas and so much more. Check out their new website at vinnyspizzarestaurant.com. Stuff at the Grills at 6750 Iroquois Trail and also in Allentown, PA. Or at stufftothegrills.com. They have homemade hot and cold sandwiches, salads, appetizers, baked goods available for any event. If you're having some sort of weird, post-Easter bash for the Atlas Union match, go to Stuff to the Grills, and there you go. Get your orders. And then lastly, we have to get the Across the Pitch gear at the AATSportsNetwork.com/shop for all the cool stuff on there. And that is a sponsor read. Guys, I will say actually real quick, Jose, after that match, I lost my voice. I'm still kind of recovering a bit today. I don't know if you can hear, there's a bit muffledness in my voice. But on Wednesday, I had like a 3-hour long phone call for work, and I wasn't even able to be heard. I had like a client who's never heard my voice call me, and they're like, hey, Mike. I'm like, hey, how you doing, Brian? So it was one for the ages that day, Jose. So thank you again. Dave, any last thoughts, though, before we wrap up the show?
Perhaps not like a thought on the games, but just a general observation of not just this season, but the last few years of Jim Curtin.
Yep.
I mean, do you remember, Jose, you probably remember this, do you remember there was the accusation, or I don't know if it actually happened, where Unai Emery admitted that he planned his substitutions well in advance of the games?
I do remember hearing that, and not necessarily as a press conference person. Obviously, that started when I joined you guys, but I do remember that hearing something about that.
Anyway, so does Jim Curtin plan his substitutions? That's my one question I'd quite like. And, I mean, it's probably something he'd never admit because then it sort of might give away the plan. But if it sort of feels like he plans his substitutions because they always happen in similar windows, very similar windows. All the time. He'll always take a striker off after an hour. He'll always bring another player on with 20 minutes to go. And if he needs to try and win a game, he'll make a triple substitution in the 70th minute. And he sort of did all 3 of those sort of things after about 60 minutes, 63 minutes on Saturday. I'm interested to know if he does plan his substitutions.
Dave's
when
gonna
it
have
develops.
us go like research every game and jot down every substitution over the last 2 years. I mean, it's listen. We joke around about Kurt being predictable, but that's a fair point, Dave.
It just feel like it just feel like they're like he does plan out a substitution. I mean, if they are fair enough, it just does feel like it's a thing that happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's always the same windows, always the same players come similar like position wise coming on off. It's just as we were discussing the show further and further, it was something that was growing on my mind. So I just want to throw out there.
Now I'm gonna pay more attention. I'll tell you that much. Jose, any final thoughts?
No, it was again a pleasure to have you there, Mike. Pro tip: the day after any Union game, those well, not Sundays, but the Mondays, I tend to block maybe my entire morning, so I don't have any conference calls at all to sort of like regenerate everything that I lost on Saturday. Midweek games are obviously far and few in between now and the Apple era, but just a little pro tip there. But really excited again. I'm really thankful to be part of this podcast and be part of the network. And it's as much as we may feel down about our team and we may feel frustrated about decisions or the lack of decisions being made or clarity. We love this team. We want them to succeed. And I really hope that if we are putting all of our eggs in this basket, we walk out of the CCL with something. So other than that, thank you for joining us on this ride, everybody. We're excited to see how it goes.
Absolutely. My final thought would be Cincinnati has 17 points. The Union have 7. But they're only 4 points behind Nashville, 6 points behind Columbus. So let's not panic yet, right? The playoffs expansion may actually be the biggest benefit for us this season. So again, let's just take it day by day, week by week, game by game, and enjoy Wednesday night for what it is. So again, Wednesday night, 10 p.m. FS1 Atlas hosts the Union in Mexico, and that is across the pitch, guys. Thanks for joining. Duke.
Cheers, Duke.